Have you ever asked yourself, if you have that urge to buy a waterfront property, is it better to buy a cottage or to buy a lake house? And really, what's the difference?
Moving forward with the DekkerTeam. Moving forward together with the DekkerTeam.
I'm Yetta Dekker.
And I'm Ken Dekker.
And we've been continuing and really enjoying just sharing the insights around waterfront living and anything to do with real estate, really, and making the most out of the home that you have. Exactly. And in this segment, what are we going to really get down and deal with?
Well, in this segment, we'll learn how to decide if a cottage or a lake house is for you and what the differences are, and really what you're going to maybe afford is part of the equation, although we're not going to get into the financial side of it in this show. But we are talking about the major differences between a cottage and what I call a lake house or a permanent residence that is on water.
Right. And I think to me, the biggest difference, if I can choose one, if I only get to choose one.
Okay, you only get to choose one, Yetta. What is it?
Okay, it's I don't have to pack up. I don't have to maintain two places.
Oh, you're saying as far as a permanent residence goes?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I know which way you lean towards.
And if you
After living with you for 37 years, I know which way you lean towards.
Right. And maybe you don't lean the same way I do, meaning you prefer having a cottage and you don't mind maintaining two places. So I think there is as many people that prefer that because then it's getting away from the day-to-day.
Yeah, a change is as good as a rest. Right. Although I agree, like we rented a cottage earlier this year rather than own one. We thought we'd try it out and rent one for a weekend, brought the kids up.
And the grandparents.
And the grandparents.
Well, the
were there.
great-grandparents.
And yet, it was hours of packing up the boat, packing up the food, packing up the clothing.
And who did that?
Mostly you.
Oh, right. So it took you hours?
Well, it was hours.
Yeah, okay.
I did have to hook up the boat.
You did.
And drive it up there and launch it.
Right. So that is one of the things
and then clean it after and repack it up and put it back on the trailer.
That was a big project. And so that certainly is one of the elements, I think, when you have a lake house or a year-round residence. And we're finding more and more people are opting for one place rather than two. It's becoming trendy almost, right?
Yeah, if they're available. They're in scarcity. There's some scarcity on properties that are within a good commute of Ottawa.
Right.
Right. And so other cottage differences is cottages are generally seasonal.
Right. A true cottage.
A true cottage. Usually you have to winterize it.
Right.
And it's not heated in the winter, although some of them may have a wood stove or that sort of thing. And people will go up and kind of rough it in the winter, the odd time in their cottage, if they can get access to it.
Right. So access is another one of the big things to think about, right? What is my access? So do I have to get in by boat or do I get in by road? And in the winter, do I get in by ice? So is there a period of time where I really can't get in when there is no road access and where it's really too cold to get across the boat because the ice is starting to form and hasn't formed enough yet? So sometimes there's limited access to some cottages.
And that's important to know, though, even if it has a road, whether it's maintained in the winter or you're going to need to take a snowmobile or four-wheeler in if you're going to go in the wintertime. And typically, properties that don't have access in the winter, like the road isn't maintained, or you have to access by boat, typically those properties are going to be more cost effective. They're going to be less cost than something that has 24/7, 365 days a year access.
Exactly. And now from a financing perspective, I think it's worth touching on that a little bit. A true cottage is that, how do you finance that?
Well, you can still finance it. You can own two properties.
Yeah.
Only one is your principal residence, though. So you will have to pay capital gains
if you
sell the cottage sometime in the future and make a profit on it.
Right. And then depending on whether it has a septic system or whether it's got a holding tank or whether it has an outhouse, because some cottages still are very like the compostable toilets and that kind of thing. And that is more difficult to finance. Just percentage wise, you're going to have a whole lot more money down, and it's less expensive, so it may be more doable to be able to do that.
And most people aren't buying a cottage until they have a fair bit of equity in their existing residence.
Right.
And quite often they remove some equity to buy that cottage.
And then financing's not an issue at all, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. Now the other thing is, for a cottage, you got that pack up and go, like we talked about. Typically, cottages are an hour, 2, 3, maybe even 4 hours drive from your principal residence. So you want to make sure that that's a comfortable drive for you.
Right.
And for some people, cottages make a huge sense because they get the summer off. You know, school teachers or whatever.
Or you have a good, healthy, long summer break and you get 4, 5, 6, even 7 or 8 weeks, and you can go enjoy it at a cottage.
Yeah. Yeah, and for people that are only getting a week, it might make sense to just rent one.
Right.
And you don't have to maintain it. You go up and enjoy it.
Right.
Everything that way.
And if you own the cottage, the whole idea of packing up and going up there is probably much diminished because you're keeping much everything up there. You're not slugging bedding and clothing, maybe a little bit of clothing, but for the most part, it's just the groceries. The condiments are already up there, the basics, the dishes, all that sort of stuff is already sitting there.
Yes.
Now you do have to maintain it.
Yes. And also bedding and things you probably would bring up because you're not necessarily going to have laundry facilities at a cottage. Now, a lake house, permanent residence, you're going to commute. It's perfect for someone that's retiring. We've sold one recently to somebody that was staying at home and working from home. Both the husband and wife work from home.
Yeah, and they got a gorgeous place.
Oh yeah, did they ever?
Yeah.
And so the waterfront property made sense for them. Also, people that are able to commute makes sense for.
Yeah, and we just had some other clients actually that sold a little property in town and now live on the water. They get their retirement dream decades before they're ready to retire, and they're able to commute in together. And it really, when they're home, and they have their cottage and their house and their pool and their lake all right there.
And they also thought that they wouldn't be able to afford it. And yet it had a basement unit, a walkout unit, which they're Airbnb-ing. So they're actually making some money.
Well, it's actually costing them less to live there on a gorgeous waterfront than it was in town when they offset the income.
Is that right? Wow.
So, and they didn't think it could happen. And so maybe you're thinking, well, waterfront, I want one, and I can't make it happen. Creativity around that is something we can maybe help you with. So if you want to have a conversation around that, we would love to offer you a free consult on the phone, just a quick 15 minutes to ask a few pertinent questions to decide if this maybe is the time, even if you think it's not.
So we've created over 357 shows giving all kinds of information about real estate that are valuable and have great tips for you. And if you'd like to see those, I recommend you subscribe to our DekkerTeam YouTube channel, because then you'll get notifications when we add new videos.
Yeah, and really, no matter where you are, make the most of every moment, whether you're on the waterfront or not.
Moving forward with the DekkerTeam. Moving forward.